Module 12, the lymphatic system, the spleen and thymus gland. The spleen is about 4 to 5 inches long and is located in the abdomen. It's surrounded by a capsule with a network of trabeculae extending inside it. The capsule contains smooth muscle tissue. Inside, there are 2 tissue types, white and red pulp. White pulp is made of diffuse lymphatic tissue and lymph nodules. It surrounds the arteries that enter the spleen. Red pulp is made of veins with reticular fibers. They take in the blood that was in the capillaries of the spleen. Now, these names aren't arbitrary. If lymph is clear or white, it would make sense that the lymphatic tissue in the spleen is called white pulp. And the veins with reticular fibers, which carry blood then, would make up the red pulp. In fact, 3/4 of the spleen is made up of red pulp. So, what does the spleen do? Well, it doesn't filter lymph like lymph nodes do. It filters blood instead. When the blood moves through the spleen, it passes through the white pulp. If it contains any foreign invaders, then the diffuse lymphatic tissue or the lymph nodules will begin to respond. So we can say that responding to foreign invaders is one responsibility of the spleen. But it has 2 other functions. The red pulp-filled spleen removes old erythrocytes in the blood. Remember how you learned that red blood cells are anucleate and don't live for very long? They have to be removed from the blood, and it's the spleen's job to do it. As the blood moves through the spleen, it passes through the red pulp. When erythrocytes are old, they become stiff. As these old cells pass through the reticular fibers of the red pulp, their membranes break. Then macrophages in the red pulp attack these dead cells, engulfing them via phagocytosis. A third function of the spleen is to behave as a reservoir for oxygen-rich blood. It stores extra blood to keep handy in case of any potential blood loss. So, if the body has a trauma and loses blood, the autonomic nervous system's sympathetic division triggers the smooth muscle of the capsule of the spleen to contract. That will cause the stored red blood to move into the bloodstream to make up for the blood loss until your body has a chance to resupply. To sum up, we can say that the spleen has 3 functions. Using its white pulp, it filters the body's blood to first identify foreign invaders and respond to them. Its red pulp is for filtering old erythrocytes, causing them to rupture when they pass through the reticular fibers. Then macrophages use phagocytosis to remove those worn-out cells. Finally, it acts as a storage organ for oxygen-rich blood in case of hemorrhage. Now, these are important functions, but believe it or not, you can live without your spleen if you had to. If the spleen is injured and irreparable, a splenectomy may be necessary because its vascular tissue can cause too much internal bleeding. If it is removed, the liver actually can take over the function of removing old red blood cells, and the rest of the lymphatic system will resume the task of immunological defense. It's not as perfect a situation as if the body had its spleen, so folks who've had a splenectomy are more at risk for infection. The thymus gland is also connected with the lymphatic system. It's located just in front of the heart and below the upper sternum. You may remember learning about this gland when we covered the endocrine system. In fact, as a part of that system, it produces the hormone thymosin. But the thymus gland is also a part of the lymphatic system too. It changes and grows as your body matures. Most of that growth occurs during childhood. In youth, most of the thymus gland is made up of lymphatic tissue. But after puberty, the gland begins to shrink in size a bit, and it's then mostly made up of fatty tissue. Well, as a part of the lymphatic system, scientists are still learning more about the thymus gland's role. Before birth and during childhood, pre-T lymphocytes, which are immature lymphocytes, are made in the red bone marrow. They then travel to the thymus. These unique cells, which are helpful to the immune system, mature to become T lymphocytes. They're called T lymphocytes because the T stands for thymus. This process is called thymic education, and it appears that as the maturation process occurs, there may be some pre-T lymphocytes that can cause immune reactions in the body, such as those that would attack the body's own antigens. So those detrimental cells are eliminated. Only the ones that are able to attack foreign cells are allowed to mature. They then enter the bloodstream and live in other lymphatic tissue. So we can say that one function of the thymus gland is to stimulate the maturation of T lymphocytes from pre-T lymphocytes, while removing any negative lymphocytes in the process. And it turns out that the hormone produced by the thymus gland, which is its role in the endocrine system, feathers in nicely to its work in the lymphatic system. You see, it produces thymosin, which stimulates the maturation of the T lymphocytes. Now, scientists don't know everything the thymus gland does. It can produce other hormones, and most likely has other functions in the lymphatic system. Truly, we can say that our bodies are so complex that we may never fully understand their amazing design.